Hello, everyone. We are students with Jan Musikamp's History 1046 class, and we will be presenting a brief presentation on the history of the Czechoslovak Nationality Room and its significance in Pittsburgh. So topics for today's presentation. So we're going to be talking about the significance of Czechoslovak immigrants in American history, and additionally their role in Pittsburgh's history. We're also going to talk about Pittsburgh's role in the formation of the Czechoslovakia as a nation. And then we'll move on to the Nationality Room, invented traditions, and then the actual differences between the Czech Republic and Slovakia. So Czechoslovak immigrants played a major role in American industrialization, but additionally they played a major role in Pennsylvania's industries such as coal mining and steel production. As a whole, they were underrepresented in American industrial culture, despite the fact that they played a major role. Oftentimes, they were downtrodden by other immigrants, which gave way to several ethnic slurs to encompass just generalizing European laborers as a whole. And then Pennsylvania and Ohio did offer a unique location to settle with large amounts of industry and smaller, culturally homogeneous neighborhoods. So Western PA is home to some of the highest concentrations of Slovak descendants in the United States. As you can see, this map from the U.S. Census Bureau shows that Pennsylvania and the Cleveland, Ohio area hold the highest number of Slovak immigrant descendants. So Slovak culture in Pennsylvania is often overlooked. So as I mentioned earlier, they're often underrepresented compared to the Polish and Italian immigrants in Pittsburgh. They were again thrown into generalized terms such as just Slav. But some Pittsburgh neighborhoods did offer a unique place to give identity to Slovak immigrants. The most notable ones were the South Side, Brackenridge, Vandergrift, and Braddock. The Collar Club was established on the South Side, and that was a Polish a Slovak fraternal organization, which bridged the gap between American Slovaks and an identity with their homeland. So they also played a major role in the Pittsburgh steel industry. Prior to Slovak immigrants moving to the United States, many were actually agricultural workers in Slovakia, and they could not sustain a living due to a large population explosion that occurred between 1880 and 1890, or excuse me, in 1900. Slovaks made up a large portion of Pittsburgh steelworkers, roughly 16% of them. And then often they endured both social and industrial abuses on a very large scale. And some of these abuses notably occurred in Pennsylvania and Ohio. So additionally, Slovaks played a major role in mine culture in Pennsylvania. Estimates say that roughly 20% of all coal miners in Western Pennsylvania were of Slovak descent. Fayette County and Greene counties, which are just south of Pittsburgh, are home to mining towns with large Slovak populations. And this did build a camaraderie among miners, which played a major role in building the so-called mine culture that emerged through Western Pennsylvania, the West Virginia Panhandle, and Eastern Ohio. So the mines and the mills were nothing short of hell on earth. There were many industrial abuses. So mining and steel industries were inherently dangerous work. Often they were considered to be reckless work. So many men were actually killed by dangerous machinery or dangerous conditions in the mine. This gave way to a large number of Slovak immigrants, which kind of created a cultural phenomenon. So if anyone is interested, there is a poem about this. It's called Songs from the Slovak the Mill. It's a poem about a widow and her experiences living in Homestead after leaving Slovakia. So Pittsburgh also played a major role in the unification of Czechoslovakia. So on May 31st, 1918, the Pittsburgh Agreement was signed, which created the Czechoslovakia nation. So this was a joint intent by the Czech and Slovak Americans to create a new nation for them. This was based upon the inevitable dissolution of the Austro-Hungarian Empire following the end of World War I. And this was organized by the head of the Czechoslovak National Council, Thomas Masaryk. So this is a picture of the Pittsburgh Agreement plaque in downtown Pittsburgh. If anyone is ever curious, they can actually visit this in Pittsburgh. It's just marking the site where this occurred at the Pittsburgh Moose Hall. So now we'll be talking about the Nationality Room, and I will be handing it over to Grace.
Hi, so in reference to the Nationality Room itself, it is designed as a folk style room over the common Czech Gothic style that was also prevalent in the area. And it attempts to pay homage to generations of individuals from the corresponding regions of the Czech Republic and Slovakia. And referring back to the idea of the common Czech Gothic style, it was rejected as it did favor the Czechs over the Slovaks, which was not true to the Pittsburgh demographics of the region, as there are more Slovak immigrants instead of Czech immigrants. Slide, please. So the Nationality Room as a whole was focusing on the designs of the nature and botanical beauty from the folk regions of both. There's with the large focus on the botanical beauty that you can see flowers adorning both the walls and the ceilings in between the individual beams that adorn the ceiling. And most notably in the Nationality Room, though, however, is the use of intarsia panels, which is pieces of wood that are fitted together to create a mosaic-like picture with the illusion of depth. And one of the most elaborate examples of the intarsia in the Nationality Room is the large tree of life that is adorning one of the back walls, and as well as a large jigsaw mosaic adorning another wall. And then in the display cases, there are several examples of the traditional folk customs and family lifestyles, family customs that were prevalent in the area, as there were several Slovak corn husks. And importantly, in these cases, there was the inclusion of the traditional woven cloths that were draped over the doorframe of a room where a mother and her newborn baby are supposed to stay together for 40 days. And again, the inclusion of these elements highlights the traditions of the readings and the importance that they have to each individual ethnic group. And then the use of the intarsia also shows up again in the room, but this time in the form of the professor's table. And on the professor's table, it has images of the subjects that should be taught in the room, which include philosophy, law, and medicine, and has the intarsia done in the notable signs and symbols of the discipline. Slide, please. So here are some images of the intarsia in the Nationality Room. So on the left, you will see a up-close example of the professor's desk and the intarsia that adorns the top part of the desk. And then on the right, you can see the more zoomed out image of the professor's desk, with the front three panels being images of the philosophy, law, and medicine intarsia. And the two side panels include references to both biology and technology in order to highlight the new rise of technology coming out of Czechoslovakia during this time period. Slide, please. And then in these images, we can see more the Nationality Room as a whole. Again, the beams, the room was indeed modeled after a farmhouse, again, paying its respects to the traditional folk style of the region. And this is evident from observing the exposed beams and wood in the ceiling. And also, if you look closely, you can see where the botanical images are painted onto the ceiling. Again, traditional to the region, highlighting the culture. And then on the right, it is an example of the artwork that does adorn the walls of the room, highlighting the nature and the species of animals that are also important to the culture. Slide, please. So looking at art and national identity, the room does include many traditional images and paintings that are commonly seen throughout the region as kind of like national symbols of unity and coming together. But one of the most important art forms of national unity that the room includes is the designs on money, as money is often overlooked as a form of art and national identity, but is a functional art form, and it becomes a unifying force as everyone uses it and sees it and interacts with it on a daily basis. And then these are just two coins that were designed in respectively the 1930s and the 1960s in Czechoslovakia. Thank you. Slide, please.
So I will be talking about Czechoslovakia as an imagined nation and what gives the Czechoslovakian nation its like unique character. The first thing that we see is prominent figures. These create the idea of unity of the new Czechoslovak nation through presenting a common history while also linking, these figures that predated the existence of the nation to more modern figures that exist within the Czechoslovak nation. So here we have um, five figures. One is Saint Cyril and Methodius, then the Good King. Then we have the first president of Czechoslovakia, Masaryk, and then we have Kamensky. Next slide, please. So Saint Cyril and Methodius, these are two Greek brothers who were sent to, spread Christianity and translate the Bible into Slavic. They are seen as, helping the, Slovak, like Czechoslovakian nation gain its unique character of Christianity. And it says a lot about who is seen as, a Czechoslovakian person, someone who co-opts this idea of Christianity or believes in the same faith. So we see this, idea of who belongs to the nation and the formation of national identity fueled by a religious identity. Next slide, please. So another figure that is important in the Czechoslovakian history and predates its creation is the Good King. The Good King wanted to unite the region between pagans and Christians, but this didn't quite work out because, this Christian king was killed by his pagan brother. This also says a lot about, that he was the uniter, but, the good king died a martyr, doing what was quote unquote right, and makes him a national hero. Then we can see like Kamensky, who came up with the modern idea of education. So we can see these figures move that predate, again, the creation of the Czechoslovakian nation to more modern figures who, creates the modern idea of education and affirms that everyone, regardless of their socioeconomic status or sex, deserves an education. And he is also a figure that links to immigrants in the US as well, because he was offered a position at Harvard but turned it down. So, not only is he a figure for Czechoslovakian people who live in the nation, but also in the diaspora. Next slide, please. Then another figure we have here is the first president of Czechoslovakia. And he again connects back to not just the US, but University of Pittsburgh particularly, as he wrote a letter to Pitt talking about the importance of education. He is represented on the wall. His figure is made by melted coins that were donated by kids in Czechoslovakia. So we see again this connection between, University of Pittsburgh, the US, and Czechoslovakia here. And Pravda Vitezi, what it says like right next to him, his figure roughly translates to truth conquers. However, it more closely relates to the importance of education. And we again see this figure playing out the importance of education, much like Kamensky. Next slide, please. The paintings of flowers between, in the ceiling that Grace mentioned earlier, these also connect to the unique nature of the Czechoslovakian polity. The paintings of flowers connect well to the idea that the room should represent the population as a whole, and especially connects to like the rural population, which is the majority, in the sense of, popular nationalism, and kind of shows that this nation is made, and propelled by the people, and not like, the rural people who were before not given say in, politics or leadership, and that the nation is constituted of these people and the authority of the leaders is derived from these people. The prominent figures, like I said, create an idea and an identity and a past of the Czechoslovakian nation. But while these figures stress on the unity of Czechs and Slovaks, it also acts as exclusionary, because you know, a lot of ethnicities in because of the name of the nation and these figures that we see that are held important are left out of what counts as Czechoslovakian person, such as, you know, maybe German or Hungarian speakers, etc. And now I will let um, our presenter here take it away.
Hello, I'm Andrea Janik. Even though Czechoslovakia was one country, Czechs and Slovaks were recognized as two separate entities. In their past national anthem, we see the distinction between Czechs and Slovaks very clearly. The first verse came from a Czech song, Kde domov můj, which translates to Where is my home? Then there was a pause in the music, and the second verse came from a Slovak song, Nad Tatrou sa blízka, which translates to Lightning above the Tatras. On paper, in the Pittsburgh Agreement and in this anthem, we see an equal representation of both Czechs and Slovaks. In the Nationality room, we see somewhat of an equal representation as well. However, this is not the case in Czechoslovakia itself. The Czechs dominated both politically and culturally in the state. Next slide, please. Slovaks were expected to assimilate and adapt the cultural norms of Czechs, but in turn, the threat of this provoked Slovaks and strengthened their sense of Slovak nationalism. Ultimately, Czechs and Slovaks maintained their individual cultural identities in language, customs, and religion. Next slide. After the Cold War, there was a resurgence of nationalism that communism had previously suppressed. Czech nationalism embraced Czechoslovakism, mainly due to their privileged position within the Federation, while Slovak nationalism strived for more independence and autonomy. Some people were against the split and wanted to preserve Czechoslovakia in fear that the country wouldn't be as strong economically and militarily. Ultimately, it's tough to say who was against and who was for the split because there was no referendum to do so. The consensus to split was reached behind closed doors by politicians in what is known as the Velvet Divorce. It is known as this due to its bloodless and peaceful transition. Next slide, please. The Czech Republic and Slovakia were both in theory new countries, but in reality, the Czech Republic was more so a continuation of Czechoslovakia. They kept the previous flag, and Slovakia created a new one. And even in sports, Czech teams stayed in the same division as previously earned, but Slovakia, as a new country, had to start from the lowest division and work their way up. My father was born in Czechoslovakia, the Slovak part, and he was 23 when the country split. He expressed that during that time, he, as well as many other people, didn't want or see the need to split. It wasn't until he came to the United States when he viewed the split in a more positive light. When he came here and would talk about where he is from, no one knew anything about Slovakia. Having people around you oblivious to the existence of your nation and ethnicity is frustrating and quite harmful to your sense of identity. People of any nation or ethnicity, no matter how small, strive for recognition from others. With all that being said, Czechs and Slovaks have a great brotherly relationship today, and many still have a sense of nostalgia attached to Czechoslovakia, especially the older generation. Next slide, please. The Czechoslovak Nationality Room in the Cathedral of Learning serves as a great reminder of the history of Czechs and Slovaks, as well as Pittsburgh's role with Czechoslovakia as a nation. We see Slovak traditions are still important to the Pittsburgh area in education as well, especially because Pitt is home to the only Slovak studies program in North America. If you would like to see more about the Czechoslovak Nationality Room or other nationality rooms, there are virtual tours on YouTube under the Pitt Global channel. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.